Fond du sang? Is that what you call it? Did I come here last year? And the Didis were here last year, right? But the year before when I came, the Didis were not there, is that correct?
We were downstairs.
They were downstairs. Your Didis are very, very beautiful. You can see Lord Chaitanya and the Panchatattva here in Mauritius. Very, very beautiful deities. There's such a nice temple hall that you have here. And surely you must have a big congregation over here as well who are serving the Panchatattva. It is really an honor to be here with all of you and to be able to perform the Panchatattva's activities of Harinam Sankirtan. And to take a bath. When I was young and came to Krishna consciousness, I was just 20 years old. And really I knew absolutely zero about anything related to Vedic culture. But I will say that I knew the Mahamantra because at that time in America, India spiritualism was just beginning to take place. That time in America, there was a countercultural revolution which was going on. Us young people, we were looking at society and we were thinking, that's not us. That's not what we want to do. We were seeing everybody tell us that to be happy in life, you must do this. To be happy in life, you must do that. To be happy in life, you must have this degree. To be happy in life, you must have that certificate. And we were looking at all the people around us who were telling us these things, and they were all quite miserable. So some of the young people who were elder to myself, and like I said, I was just 20 at the time, already had started looking to the east. And there was one gentleman, two gentlemen. They were professors at either Harvard University or Yale, prestigious schools in America. And their line of research and their line of teaching was clinical psychology. One of the gentlemen, his name was Dr. Timothy Leary, and another of the gentlemen, his name was Dr. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten now. At any rate, they came to India in the early 60s to look into Indian culture and meditation, seeing the effect that meditation would have upon the mind. Also, they were both interested in the effects that psychedelic chemicals would have upon the consciousness. And they came back, and at that time in America, in this clinical psychology, they were starting to investigate the use of this chemical LSD for the treatment of different mental disorders. But because they had been interested in meditation and, the whole issue of the mind, they started using this LSD in a very broad way, and they were encouraging the youth of America to use this LSD also. Naturally, with these talks going on, they both lost their jobs at Harvard or Yale, whichever it was, university that they were working at. And Dr. Leary, he continued with his profession, and the other gentleman, he returned to India and he met one saint whose name was Karoli Baba. And he accepted initiation from this Karoli Baba, and he was known as Ramdas. So Ramdas came back before 1965, and he started presenting yoga and meditation and Vedic philosophy mixed with so many different things. It was like a very eclectic mix of ideas. And later he became known as Baba Ramdas. And by 1970 he printed one book called Be Here Now. I wouldn't imagine that any of you all had ever heard of the book Be Here Now. But it was so many ideas and so many concepts that he had about spirituality and yoga and revelation and realization. And basically, it was all going in the direction of Advaita Vedantic philosophy, meaning impersonalism. In 1969, in the winter of 1969, just the beginning of 1970, I came across a copy of Be Here Now. It was a very interesting book. In America back at that time, when you would go to the grocery store, they didn't have plastic bags, but they had these brown cardboard, brown paper bags, very sturdy paper bags that you would carry your groceries in. And the book was printed on grocery bags. and I think it was hand bound. And a vinyl recording came along with it of them chanting different mantras. So I came across that book. I came across that book and I read through and I came to the part about mantras. And it had mantras for Lord Shiva, it had mantras for Hanumanji, it had mantras for Durga Mata, it had mantras for everyone. And it had Hare Krishna mantra also. And for some odd reason, I was attracted to this Hare Krishna mantra. So I guess perhaps it was about January or January of 71, I started saying this Hare Krishna mantra. I didn't know how to sing Hare Krishna mantra, but I would just say the mantra over and over again. And I had some idea, some misconception, that by saying this mantra, that I would realize that I was God. This is also misconception that people have. Srila Prabhupada always spoke about this, that the impersonal people, they say that at the time of revelation, you become free from the influence of Maya, and then you realize that I am God, and you are God, and you are God, and that we are all God, and that we are all one with the universe. And Srila Prabhupada could quite, easily answer that idea. He would say, if God is all powerful, how can God be covered by Maya? And then have to become free from Maya to understand that he's God again. So at any rate, I knew the Maha Mantra, and I chanted the Maha Mantra, and that's about as much as I knew about Vedic culture. And then, by the grace of the Panchatattva, and by the grace of our Guru Parampara, and by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, I met Hare Krishna devotees. And it was at a music festival, and when I chanted Hare Krishna with the devotees, it was different. And at the moment I said Hare Krishna, I sang one time the mantra with the devotees, then I experienced transcendental ecstasy. And then I didn't stop chanting after that. And that was May 29th, 1971, in a place called Connellsville, Pennsylvania. Some very remote place. And then meeting with the devotees, they said they had a few books. At that time they had Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, but it was the little blue edition of Bhagavad Gita. when the devotees were leaving, one girl came up to me, one of the devotee girls came up to me, and she said, you must get this book. And then very randomly, she just opened the book up, and she said, listen to this. I mean, it was like very random. And she opened the book up, and she said, Krishna says, there are 3 gates leading to hell: lust, anger, and greed. And when I heard that, I went, oh my God, this is the heaviest thing I ever heard in my life. I said, please, I have $10. That's all the money I have. Please sell me your book. She said, no, I can't. I said, why not? And she said, I don't know if I'll ever get another copy because I don't have any money. And then I met a few more devotees, and they spoke to me about Krishna. And I said, do you have books? And they said, let me check. And they went and they checked, and they had this, Prabhupada had just started printing 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam. But he was printing each chapter in a different small book. And it's like the chapters were Purusha Sukta confirmed. Krishna is the origin of everything. Krishna is the answer to all questions. And these small books had very interesting covers with Vishnu and fantastic stuff that I had never seen before. I said, please take my $10, give me these books. And so they did that. They gave me one Bhakti Godhead magazine also. That Bhakti Godhead magazine, the cover picture was picture of Lord Balaram killing some demon. When I look back now, I think, gosh, that's a real curious picture to put on the cover of one of the magazines. They're trying to attract people. But I took that magazine and I read it. And there was an article in that magazine from a lecture that Srila Prabhupada had given, and the lecture was about the Panchatattva. And Srila Prabhupada was speaking about how merciful and how powerful is the Panchatattva. He said the Panchatattva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in 5 different features. And I can remember one line from that lecture, the article. Srila Prabhupada said, even if a person will have a picture of the Panchatattva in their home and not even have any idea who that is, and if they keep it in a drawer in their house filled with everything else and not even knowing that it's still there, that picture of the Panchatattva will purify their lives completely and bring them to the position of loving Krishna. He said the Panchatattva is so powerful. And then about 8 days later, I was in the city, I was riding the bus, and I looked out the window and I saw the Hare Krishna devotees performing Harinam. And so I quickly got off the bus and I went and I just got in line with the devotees, and I closed my eyes and I started singing Hare Krishna, and I just went into ecstasy again. And devotees can be kind of shy people, and I must have been in that line chanting Hare Krishna, feeling ecstasy for at least 45 minutes before some devotee sort of plucked up his courage to come to speak to me. I mean, I didn't look scary, I don't think. I had kind of long hair, down to about here, and my beard at that time was sort of reddish, and it was longer. Because I had a red beard, my mother always used to call me a bloody communist. Because she thought that, only communists have bloody red beards. Finally, a devotee came to me. His name was Saptaratha. And Saptaratha looked at me and he said, Hare Krishna. And he said, do you know anything about this chanting? And I said, no, absolutely not. I said, all I know about this chanting is that whenever I do it, I become ecstatic. And I become filled with joy. But I don't know what it means or anything like that. So the devotees were very kind to me, and they kept me with them that day. They gave me their lunch prasad. We sat in the park and did lunch prasad together. And we went back to the street, chanted in the afternoon, and then they were leaving for their city, which was about 125 kilometers away. And they said, please come back to the temple with us. And I said, but I don't have my gear with me. And the only gear that I had was a rucksack and my toothbrush and a tube of toothpaste and maybe another t-shirt. That's about all I had. And they said, well, look, we'll be back on Friday. On Friday, and then you come back with us. And I said, certainly, certainly. So all that week, I was just chanting Hare Krishna, and I was thinking, how wonderful these people are, how wonderful these people are. And then Friday they came, and I was in the park, or downtown, waiting for them to come. And I chanted with them all day long in great ecstasy. And we took prasad together. And then we got into the van. And we were so poor back then. The van had no seats in it. It was an old blue Ford van. I mean, it must have been 1,000 years old already, and that was 1971. And no windows. And what we would sit on is we would sit on the Bhakti Godhead magazine boxes. And it was interesting. This was like first time I was associating with these people. And I noticed as soon as they got in the van, and the van started to move, all of the devotees started doing like this. And so in my mind I was thinking, oh my Lord, these are all like advanced yogis. And they're going into like deep samadhi trance. And then one of the devotees, my god brother Saptaratha, I'm forgetting his name now, Pancharatna from Mayapur. He was Bhakti Steve at that time. And Pancharatna, he gave me a copy of one of the original Bhagavatams that Srila Prabhupada brought from India. One of the brown Bhagavatams that had been printed in Delhi. He put this in my hands. He said, read this on the way back to Buffalo. And I was just like I have so many defects as an individual, but one of my defects is sometimes I'm too submissive. And I let people tell me what to do. It's gotten me in trouble. But he said, read this. And so I said, sure. And I opened it up. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? And I was seeing this Sanskrit, and I was seeing this transliteration, and I was trying to read it. I was like, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Then I started trying to read like the first translation to the first verse in the Bhagavatam, and it was like so beyond any conception that I could ever have had. And then the next thing I knew, the truck was stopping in front of the Buffalo Temple. And I was like this. I'd also fallen asleep. And when I woke up and I saw that they were just waking up, I was thinking, ooh, maybe I'm one of them. Walked into the temple, evening kirtan was going on, started chanting and dancing in ecstasy. It was all ecstasy, and it was all very fast. My country president was such a kind, saintly person. His name was Govinda. Immediately after the RT finished, he walked up to me and he said, what is your name? And I said, my name is Sean. He said, Sean, I have a gift for you. I said, really? He said, yes, come on. So we walked upstairs to the brahmachari room, and they had some old, dresser drawers that they had gotten. Probably people had thrown them away on the street. Devotees had picked them up, and that's each of the men had like one drawer to store their goods in. He opened his drawer and he pulled out his japa beads that he had chanted on before his initiation. And he had just been initiated. He said, I want to give this to you. I said, well, thank you. I said, what do I do with it? And then within 15, 20 minutes of being in the temple, he said, you will chant japa like this. And he taught me how to chant japa. It wasn't like, 1-year Bhakti course and 3-year foundation course, and then this and that and the other. Everything was moving very fast. Then he started giving me some poison. And the poison were simply wonderfuls. These white sweet balls. He started pulling simply wonderfuls out. And he said, Sean, try this. And I took it. When I took it, I started feeling the same ecstasy that I felt when I was singing Hare Krishna. And And we spoke, and Munagrahi was so kind. He was such a sweet, charming, gentle devotee. And then he said, Sean, it's 9 o'clock. We have to prepare to take rest. And I said, why are we going to go to sleep so early? He said, because tomorrow morning you're getting up at 3:30. And we're going to go to Mauritius. And I looked at him and I said, you're crazy. And he looked at me and he said, no, actually, you're crazy. He said, and the more that you will associate with us, and the more you will stay with us, you'll understand how crazy you are. So we took rest, and then sure enough, next morning, 3:30 in the morning, somebody's like shaking me, taking me down to the brahmachari bathroom. This is in Buffalo, New York. We only had cold water, and I mean, it was cold water. And it was freezing, but we took the cold shower. I went back up to the brahmachari room, and I was like getting ready to put my jeans on, and somebody said no. And somebody came up and started tying a dhoti on me. Somebody came up and started putting a tilak on me. And they had everything. They said, no, let's go to Bhakti. Take the beads. So we went, and again, it was ecstasy. And then after, I said, what can we do now? I said, now? They said, you chant japa. I said, what is japa? And they said, well, Munagrahi gave you those beads yesterday. You chant japa on those beads. And so I said, oh, okay. So then we sat down, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. And I chanted a number of rounds that morning. It was interesting. I think I chanted 14 rounds that morning. Of course, I don't know how many of those rounds I was actually saying Hare Krishna, or if I was saying something else. But and then they said, now we're going to have Srimad Bhagavatam class. I said, okay. Srimad Bhagavatam class, really, it lasted for about 15 minutes. Because somebody read the verse, and we repeated it, read the purport, and spoke for a few minutes. That was it. And then a devotee came to me and said, well, now we do devotional service until breakfast. And I said, what is devotional service? And they said, well, that's when like you use your body and your mind and your words in Krishna service. I said, great. I said, what do you want me to do? And they said, well, we're making a new temple room, and there's a lot of paint splashes on the floor, so we want to give you some steel wool and some spirits, and we want you to clean up those paint splashes. And I said, I'd love to have you do that. And so I was just to chant, Hare Krishna, and I was like rubbing those paint spots off the floor. And then one girl came running up, and she had a piece of paper, and she put it in front of my face while I was on the ground, while I was down there on the floor. She said, while you're cleaning, learn this mantra. And the mantra was Prabhupada's prana mantra. So it was very quick, and that was like, very fast process. And then we had breakfast, and then they said, Dr. Sean, what do you want to do today? I said, you can stay, you can do devotional service, or you can go Harinam. And I said, well, what's Harinam? They said, it's like when we met you on the street, we go out to the street, we sing Hare Krishna. And I said, oh, I want to do that. So we went out downtown Buffalo, New York. and singing Hare Krishna for many hours, and I was just like in total ecstasy. My friend Bringa, he was a drummer in a band before, and he used to play these conga drums. And he had like a big conga drum that he had a strap on. And he was playing it like a mridanga. And there was a mridanga also. And I remember as soon as they started playing that, whatever, I just wanted ecstasy and I wanted to cry. And then we didn't write on. At any rate, everything was ecstatic. And after a few days, I said, this chanting Hare Krishna is so wonderful. Is there something I can do to make chanting Hare Krishna better? And so one of the devotees told me, he said, yes. He said, before you chant Hare Krishna, you should chant. Back then, this is what we chanted. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakti. Prabhupada changed that back around 1974 or 75 to Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakti. But in the beginning we chanted Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakti. And so I asked them, well, why don't we chant this mantra? And they said, well, this is the mantra for the Panchatattva. And I had absolutely no idea who the Panchatattva was. So they said, this is the mantra for the Panchatattva. And the devotee told me, the Panchatattva is so merciful that if you will chant their names, Shri Krishna, Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakti Bringa, then you'll be able to chant Hare Krishna free from offense. So we should always chant Panchatattva mantra. And so I began. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakti Bringa. And truly the Panchatattva is so calm. And they're so merciful. The Panchatattva, they never take into consideration the bad that we've done. The Panchatattva, they never look at any living being in a discriminatory way. The Panchatattva, they only causelessly give Krishna prema. Just like if you think about the beginning of Canto 1 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and there it is, like Srila Prabhupada begins with the life and precepts of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was an article written by Srila Bhakti. And it was always presented, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but in Kali Yuga, he comes as a devotee, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the ideal teacher of the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is repeatedly trying to educate us that we are not anything of this world. Actually, we have no identification with this world. We are all eternal, spiritual, living beings that are part and parcel of Krishna. But because we're a part and parcel of Krishna, we have infinitesimal free will, whereas Krishna has unlimited free will. And with our infinitesimal free will, we can make a choice. What are we going to do? What are we going to accept? Being covered by Maya, being covered by the false ego, being covered by so many material perceptions of life, we're always thinking, well, I want this for my enjoyment, or I want that for my enjoyment. I'd like a beautiful lady for my enjoyment. I'd like a handsome man for my enjoyment. I would like to live in a palace for my enjoyment. I would like to eat opulent foods for my enjoyment. I would like to have so much name and prestige because I feel that this will give me some enjoyment in this world. But because we are not material, Krishna, he tries to tell us none of these things will ever bring us satisfaction. Just like when Prahlad Maharaj was instructing his young schoolmates in the Gurukula, it was like, he would preach to his boyfriends. They were only 5 years old. And Prahlad would preach to them very, very strongly. And Prahlad would tell them, please listen to me. Please listen to me. That from the very beginning of the material cosmic manifestation up until this moment, no living being has ever been successful in satisfying his material desires. No one has ever been successful. But under the influence of Maya, people keep trying and trying and trying. Just like Srila Prabhupada said, the foolish man who acts under the influence of Maya is always trying to exploit the resources of the material nature, but he only becomes trapped in the complexities of nature. We see that today. In the name of pursuit of material development and advancement, the people of the world have become such vast beasts that are based on greedy consumption. They don't think about the earth. Let me have a faster car. Let me burn more petrol. Let me do so many different things. And the world is just becoming an intolerable place to live. So many foolish people in governments around the world, they just deny the whole concept that, the temperature of the earth is rising and rising and rising. And they think, no, this is all a myth. Let's just increase the path that we're on because we can put more money inside of our pockets. And they don't think, oh, it will affect me now. They don't think about their grandchildren's children. How they're creating a world for their grandchildren's children where they're going to be burning in a hell while living on this earth. So Prahlad said, boys, my dear friends, try to understand. No one was ever successful. Even my father, he's the most powerful demon. He is not successful in fulfilling his desires. And my goodness, all of us should take stock of our minds, and all of us should take stock of our hearts. How many desires, how many unlimited desires are within your heart? And how long have you been such a dutiful servant, trying to fulfill every desire within your heart, thinking you would become happy, but your heart or your mind has never said, boss, that's enough. Thank you. Oh yeah, kalas. Everything's finished. No more slaving to satisfy me. Never. So many unlimited desires. And under the influence of Maya, trying to fulfill those desires. And the only thing is, Mrityu Samsara Bhartani. In the 8th chapter, Srila Prabhupada says, Sri Krishna says, Ashradana Purusha Dharmasya Shiparantaha Aprapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Bhartani. So for that unfaithful person who does not have belief in the teachings of Dharma, he said, Aprapya mam, they will never catch me. Nivartante, they will fall down. And what will they fall down into? Mrityu samsara bhartani, the repetition of birth and death. That's all you get. That is all you get. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's Krishna. Those are his words. But as the ideal teacher of the Bhagavad Gita, he also says, Mame vamsa jiva loke jivhuta sanatanam rakshastan indriyani prakritishtani karshati. They're only suffering. Suffering, suffering, and suffering. So consequently, what does it mean? Do something good for them so that they will stop their suffering. That is the mission of the Lord. That is the mission of all acharyas. That is the mission of all prophets. That is the mission of all messiahs. Do something good for these poor, foolish people to try to alleviate their suffering. And so what did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do? He saw, that this Kali Yuga was going from bad to worse. Kalerdosa Nidemi Rajan Hasti Eka Mahadguna Kirtana Adhim Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Param Brijat. Kali Yuga is just an ocean of faults. Vast ocean of bad things. Nothing good in Kali Yuga. But there's one good thing. And that one good thing is if you chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and if you will chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra offenselessly, you will attain love of God. Vrindavan Thakur, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, so many acharyas who were living at that time, they all explained to us how horrible, even at that time, society had become. He said these Vrindavan Das Thakur is saying, all these Brahmins, all they're interested in is, performing yajna and collecting money. And performing sinful activity while that is going on.
For what purpose? Just so they can give such opulent weddings for their children, so they can show that they're so nice, that they can drink best quality wine, so they can have best life. Really? If you read Chaitanya Bhagavat, they were decrying the society 500 years ago. Such a pitiful situation. And therefore, like the Dvaitacharya, part of the Panchatattva, Mahavishnu, he said, Lord, you must come. Lord, you must come. He said, the society has become so wretched. Lord, you must come and you must do something to save people in society. The Dvaitacharya said, look, I'm telling you, Lord, I'm Mahavishnu. If you don't come and save these people, I will manifest 4 arms and I will kill them all myself. Come, please. The Dvaitacharya is also known as Gorhana Thakur, meaning that merciful person who called Lord Chaitanya into this world. But when Lord Chaitanya came, what did he and his associates in the Panchatattva do? Kaviraj Goswami says, they cracked the seal on the storehouse of love of God, and they drank, and they drank, and they drank. Krishna Surya Sama. I can't see any of you guys now. And Krishna is brighter than the sun. Hare Krishna. I'm going to go to the car and get my sunglasses for me. Something's happening here. Does anybody have any sunglasses I can hold on? Ah, relief. Lord Chaitanya and the Panchatattva, they cracked the seal, they cracked the lock on the storehouse of love, which is the chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And they drank, and they drank, and they drank, and they drank, and they drank. And they became so intoxicated. Like I joined ISKCON too young to have much experience of any of this drinking business. But I have one very dear Russian disciple who's my age, and he always used to tell me about his vodka drinking exploits when he was young, getting overdone. And I always used to ask him, getting overdone, when you start drinking vodka, when do you know to stop? He said, oh, Guru Maharaj, that's a question that no man can answer. Once you start drinking, you don't know when to stop. And the Panchatattva, Lord Chaitanya, they drank, and they drank, and they drank. And then they looked at everybody else and they said, come drink with us. Please come drink love of God. And they didn't qualify. They were intoxicated with love. So they didn't qualify whether you were a good person or a bad person. They didn't qualify whether you were white or black or brown. They didn't judge you in any way. They didn't judge you if you were a man. They didn't judge you if you were a woman. They didn't judge you if you were man, woman, man. They didn't look that way. They were equal to everyone. Please take the Maha Mantra. So you all are very fortunate that you're here with the Panchatattva. They're still drinking transcendental love. They're still sharing transcendental love. But now, you are their agents. Just like Srila Bhakti Thakur, and he has sung in that song, Bolo Sukir Kapogai, and that I have great, wonderful news to share with all of you. This is the headlines of the newspaper today. Lord Nityananda has established the marketplace of the holy name. Come, let us purchase holy name. The only price that you have to pay is what? Shraddha. The only price that you have to pay is your faith. According to the faith that you have in your name, the faith that you have in the holy name, that powerful merchant you will become. It's like sometimes we see there are big merchants in the market, sometimes we see very small merchants in the market. All of them are trying to make a profit. And that song, he says, you come with me. You know, I will buy holy name based on my faith, and I will give you holy name based on your faith, and you give another person holy name based on his faith. And this way, spread the holy names. Why? To alleviate the suffering of this world. Otherwise, people will continue to go through all of the actions of trying to be happy in this world, and the only result of their activities is mrityu samsara. You know, when Srila Prabhupada came to Toronto in Srila Prabhupada came to Toronto in 1976, I was a cook. And we had gotten the big Toronto temple. Has anyone ever been to ISKCON Toronto? Anyone seen pictures of ISKCON Toronto? Big, beautiful Christian church. Must have been built back in 1880 or something like that. Now it's a protected monument in Toronto. You can't touch that building. And Srila Prabhupada, when he came in 75, he said, if you get this building, it will be great victory over Maya. So then he came in 76 and we'd gotten the building. And I was the cook. And Srila Prabhupada was going to give the Sunday Feast lecture. And Toronto is a Punjabi city. It's I would say 90% of all the Indians are Punjabis. And the temple room was packed. And it was a big temple room. Absolutely packed with all of these Punjabi Hindus who had come to hear Srila Prabhupada speak. And the verse that Srila Prabhupada decided to speak on was Ashradadana Purusha Dharma Sashya Parantata Prakyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartani. And then Prabhupada, you know, Srila Prabhupada was so wonderful. Prabhupada was really the epitome of being, as soft as a rose, as hard as a thunderbolt. And on this Sunday Feast lecture, Srila Prabhupada decided he was going to be the thunderbolt. And he really started chastising the Indians. What are you doing? Krishna says if you do not have Shraddha, you will not attain anything. Why are you giving up your culture? Why are you accepting this Western way of life? Prabhupada was really, really on fire. Generally, Prabhupada would lecture for about 30 minutes maximum. That week he lectured well over an hour. And the whole time he was lecturing, he was either throwing thunderbolts or he was throwing hammers at people. And at a certain point, he told them, he said, all of you have just come to this country. When you were back home in India, none of you had motor cars. Now that you've come to this country, all of you have 2 motor cars. You're so proud of your material development. And Prabhupada paused, and then he said, but do not become attached to your motor cars. Because if you do, in your next life, you'll become cockroaches in your motor car. People were like shocked. Prabhupada was so strong, so heavy. So we should go, being the Panchatattva's people. And we should give people this mercy of the Panchatattva. Here on your island, Mauritius, you should go to every community. Give everybody Krishna consciousness. Okay, everybody's got a God. Don't go and tell them it's religion. Tell them it's the science of the soul. Tell them that it's meditation. Tell them it's for peace. Get everybody, by hook or by crook, to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Srila Prabhupada, we used to ask him, what is the symptom of a sadhu? And Srila Prabhupada said, a sadhu is a person who is always trying to do good for others. Never stop trying to do good for others. And I always mention to the devotees, if you will listen to the 1977 room recordings of Srila Prabhupada from January, when Prabhupada still has reasonably good health, until November 14th, when Srila Prabhupada departs from this world. Prabhupada's message never changes. Always do good for others. Give them Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada would always say, if you have money, print books. My Guru Maharaj told me that. Give more books. Give more prasad. Give education. But do it without discrimination, the way the Panchatattva did without discrimination. So, here we are at the feet of the Panchatattva. You're the congregation of the Panchatattva. You're the Panchatattva's people. Please, everyone, do the work of the Panchatattva. Give everyone Mahantra. And have everyone chant Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakti Bringa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. And just have firm shraddha, have firm faith that if you do that, just that effort will change the face of this dying, materialistic civilization of the world today. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Bhakti Bhakti. Now we will do Panchatattva's work and chant Hare Krishna.